Hello, welcome. Thank you for joining me today. I wasn't sure if I was going to do a reading this week because I'm leaving. I'm leaving tomorrow actually to head down closer to the airport to fly out on Saturday to the ocean. But there's been a lot that's happened just in the last couple days that I felt really compelled to share about. And then today is another one of those days where everything just sort of opened up and I have all this space. So yeah, the space is being provided to do so. So we'll see how this all comes out. There are a lot of different, like with all the readings, there are a lot of different things that are involved that are all connected, even if they seem like they're very separate, unrelated things. It's all sort of just like different angles of the same energy. Okay, so one of the things that I've been noticing, the first thing that I've been noticing is that a lot of people are in a lot of pain right now in their bodies. And so I heard like several different people use almost the same exact language. It was definitely the same energy and the same energy that I'm feeling, where it's like the one person was saying like it felt like her body was like she had pain and it felt like it was something old that was wanting to release like through the fascia, and that it was screaming, it was screaming. And then another woman was saying the same thing, that she just felt like her body, like it was just like stuck, something was stuck, and she's like, maybe I need to do a cleanse, or I need to do a detox, or I need to, and I'm feeling the same way. I'm having this body pain that feels and it is fascia related. So it feels very related to very old energy, memories, traumas, like Akashic trauma, that which never got processed, that's just kind of stored in the body, even from other lifetimes, right? So that's what it's felt like to me. So having that confirmation from other people describing it in the same way. Okay, so I've been just sort of intending. That's the other thing that's coming up for me, is a lot of guidance and reminders around the power of our voice and speaking things out loud and commanding our reality. And I have a big story to share about this with this like dream astral experience that I had last night, but I'm going to save that for a little bit later. And so, yeah, so I've just been kind of like asking, or commanding, or, asking, intending for all of these patterns and traumas and memories and stuckness to clear through my body now with grace and ease, and show me anything that I need to see, help me be aware, bring me the perfect catalyst, bring me the perfect environment or inspiration or realization, to help move this stuff out, right? And then just trusting that that's happening. When we put it in motion, when we say it out loud, when we set our intention, we can trust that it's going to manifest in its own way. And so this reminds me of what we were getting in the last reading with the Seven of Pentacles and the Patience card, where it's like, this is a process and it has its own wisdom. And our job was sort of like to just be present and to like be ready to receive. It's like putting yourself in position to like almost like so the inevitability word kept coming up, where it's like it's inevitable that we're clearing and receiving ourselves. And so we can expect that, but also being patient with the process, right? But so this week there's a lot around, or the last few days, because it hasn't been that long since I've done that reading, but there's been a lot around, again, the words and remembering that we can command our realities. And it's just something we're so programmed to forget, and to go into that victim or that lack, or like that Four of Cups energy that's come up in the last couple readings, where it's like, oh, it'll never happen for me, because there's often a lag or a delay, or it takes way longer than you'd think it would take. But again, a lot of these things that are trapped in our bodies, or patterns of distortion that we've been playing out for eons. And so it took a long time to build up this in our bodies. It's not going to take as long to clear it out, but it's not necessarily going to be overnight, unless it's that divine timing and it's time to go. Then it can go in an instant, right? That kind of thing. But just being patient, but also remembering the inevitability. And of course, that's can be applied on lots of different levels, right? Lots of different circumstances, situations. But talking specifically now about the body, because I have been seeing on Facebook other people posting, and like I had this weird thing out of the blue with my knee, where all of a sudden, like my knee, and it was throbbing, and it wasn't throbbing pain, it was throbbing like tingles. And I was like, what the hell's going on? Like, I've had issues with my knee before, but I didn't do anything that would have harmed it. So it was just kind of weird. And I was like, that's interesting. Well, for me in sessions, the knees always represent the Akashic history. Like the galactic history, I feel in the lungs, usually the left lung, but the Akashic history, I feel in the knees, and the left side is usually the persecution lifetimes. And the right side is not usually, always. It's just always, because there's patterns, just comes up the same way for me, but the right is sort of like our perpetrator lifetimes, where we've taken on a role, the opposite polarity, right, in the balancing, and experiencing all in this realm of polarity, right? We all have all of it. And so anyway, I knew that about the knees. And my son was having like an unexpected knee thing. Mine was left, his was the right. And he didn't know what he did. So I was like, okay. So we're working something out here, and then hearing that other people were having the same thing, like this out of nowhere, unexpected knee thing. Okay. So a lot with the body. So if you are having strange body stuff, strange body pains, I always talk about this with the body. It's like to avoid the temptation to be like, oh no, something's wrong, and I need to Google and I need to figure it out, and just the contraction that can happen when we're worried, or we're thinking something's wrong, and not to say that sometimes things are wrong. I don't know. It's not really my paradigm. Like for the last 10 years, decade at least, like all of my body stuff has been energy. So that's my worldview. That's my perspective. And of course we create with our worldview and with our perspective. So if you're viewing it in terms of, oh, this is energy moving through, it knows what it's doing. My job is to stay out of the way, stay out of fear, stay out of trying to control, and just invite in whatever support I might need, whether it's, like a fascia release thing or a supplement, or just a consciousness piece, or releasing some pattern or some level of self-hatred and lack of safety, whatever it is on whatever level, inviting that in, and then just trusting the perfection of this realm and of our holograms and of the wisdom of our higher selves, and just trying to get out of the way. So a little bit of a spin on that last reading too, where it was like just staying present in the moment, staying present and ready to receive, and being in touch with the physical body. It's like, again, a message of being that I'm hearing around the body stuff, just staying in the moment and trusting, and not fixating on the symptoms, right? And allowing things to move, and then trusting your guidance. Like I always say, well, if there is something lately, I used to really spiral about stuff, but now it's like, well, if there is something wrong with me and I need to know, I'll be guided. There will be some synchronicity, that shows me, and then just trusting that again, creating from our beliefs. This is everything in form is coming from our consciousness, So again, we forget that, we forget, and we think all of this is really solid and real, but we have a lot more power and effect to maneuver things around than we think. So just that reminder, as a lot of us are feeling a lot of heavy body stuff. So there's that, okay? The other thing that's been happening for me is, and I was talking about this the last time in June when we went through that portal, the 6/6 portal, and how every time we up level, there's going to be some sort, what I notice in my life at least, and I would imagine that this would be true for anybody who's going through a big up leveling, is like what I always call the goblins at the gate, and sort of like attack energy, whether it's coming through other people, like, they're not occupying their divinity, their channel so much that they can kind of become minions for that, or in the dream space, or this kind of thing. So, and that happening for me again, which I always celebrate, because I'm like, oh, thank you for confirming that I'm on a new level now, that I've upgraded. And yet it's that thing. And so someone pointed this out to me. We were doing a session, and she was definitely having that as well. And she was saying how her guides were telling her that it's like, we're transitioning from one version of ourselves, or of our, like what I would call a certain configuration in our energetic field. When you have a lot of traumas and you have a lot of distortions, I always talk about this, in the energy has to work around them and create like survival networks and patterns. And then when you do a big clearing, your whole body has to reconfigure. So she was speaking in the same language, where it's like, you're going from one configuration into another one, a clearer one. And so there's a bit of an adjustment going on. And in that adjustment, you're a little vulnerable, you're kind of like, oh God, what stays, what goes? You might be questioning yourself. You might be questioning your integrity. You might be, so it can kick up that insecurity, the insecurity programs and fears around not being right. That's been coming up for me recently, and I know others as well, where it's like getting to that wound of not being enough, or being too much, or not being right, where our whole entire society is programming us to do things in this very linear, specific way, and like the educational system system. And, well, if you don't do it right, then you get the bad grade, and even like, it's funny because the YouTube, because I post these videos on both YouTube and Facebook. And YouTube, I don't do the algorithms. Like I don't do a reading regularly at a specific time. I just do it when I feel moved to, when there's something that wants to be said. And so there's not a lot, there's the algorithms, don't catch them, whatever. And so then there's often like this feedback, like, oh, your video, they'll give you like a thumb, like an arrow down, like this one's not, not many people are choosing to watch this video. So there's always this sort of subliminal, like, like good job. And you're like, oh, right, bad job, and just that, like how it's woven into everything, so all these opportunities to just like confront that stuff, that programming within you, and just to like clear it and to become neutral. Right. But a lot of us having those wounds, and then, especially if you're somebody that didn't really get the like society program, where it didn't come naturally to you to like be able to like read the social cues and fit within them, and you kind of do things your own weird way, those wounds can be very strong. So I feel like a lot of us are having this sort of like cosmic support plus push and push, to go into those wounds, so you might be having a lot of triggers, or you might be, just having like cosmic, here's my kitty, cosmic setup. Are you gonna go in your basket? It's thundering here. So I've been to Mexico, so like rain, this is our monsoon season. It's been raining like every day the last few years. We weren't really getting good rains, and so it's like thundering now, and it's dark, and it's just like, I haven't done a reading in the rain like maybe ever. If not, it's been a long time. And so anyways, it's exciting. My kitty's coming in to cuddle in the basket under my table here. I got some kitty medicine. My cats have really been into me lately. I don't know if you're noticing that with your animals. Like they're really like, really in on this. Okay. So, and we also know that cats are kind of healers and protectors, they see in the realms. And I just know my cats have really, really been loving on me and really wanting to, and I feel like a real, like we're connecting. Sometimes you're kind of ships in the night a little bit, like they're not in the mood for you, or you're not in the mood. We're really connecting a lot. And even noticing that with my friend's cat today, like we just connected in a way, and even with a cow the other day, like with the animals. Okay, so that just kind of random, she brought that in when she came in. Now I forget what I was saying. Hold on, let me gather myself here. What was I talking about? The psychic attack, the rearranging. Okay, so right, and the insecurity program's coming up, and just feeling a little insecure where you're not sure, like you're able to see, so it's like you're on a new platform, so you can see better, you're higher up on the mountain, right? So you can see what you couldn't see. Like if maybe you were here and you could see here, now you're here and you can see this part that you couldn't see before, but now you have to integrate this whole new section in with everything else. And that'll happen with the body and energy sessions too, where something new will come in and then it has to update the whole damn body, like and then that might create another clearing that then has to update the whole body. So it's like that, right? It's like we get a new vision, a new level of consciousness perception, and we have to update everything else. And that can be kind of like what she was saying, is there's a vulnerability in that, right? Where the lower energies will take advantage of that, right? Where you might have some fear stuff coming up too, because you're feeling a little unstable. You're not used to having this energy, and until it's really integrated into the previous version of yourself and clears everything out and reconfigures, you can feel a little lost or a little confused, or like, and then you question yourself, like, well, do I even want to do this thing anymore? Or like, am I doing it from the right place? Or whatever it is, all these kind of questions, right? That can make you feel, it might kick up some fear, and then that's when these energies and the lower energies are gonna latch on. It gives them a place to latch on. From the one perspective, could be said like that. Another one could view it as an attack, where it's like, oh, you're up leveling. Let me try to stop you, right? So there's that as well. But what she really brought to me was that illumination, which seems obvious now, of just the kind of shake up in your field that allows them in, because you're in this vulnerable shifting place. But what I'm also realizing is that at the same time that things can more easily get in, things can more easily leave, because you're loose. You're loose. You're not so tightly knit. It's like something else came in, and that other thing is infusing in this, and it's clearing things out. But really great time for clearing, right? And So the last two sessions that I've had, this is what I've been witnessing, where there were huge levels of embodiment, first of all, embodiment, but huge levels of clearing. And so in the session yesterday, and she was saying to me, she's like, oh, maybe you want to do a reading about this, because we were seeing these patterns, and I was just kind of like, yeah, how would I talk about that? But then there were other things that happened for me last night in the dream space where it's all come together, where it's like, it's just all related. I'm just seeing it. I'm seeing this package in the field, right? So sharing this. Okay. So in the session, there were 3 different times where we saw, or I saw, initially these images that were representing, it took a little while to decode because it was strange, because they were images that were representing, let's see, like energies, darker energies, distorted energies that were very, present in the old configuration. So before I started the session with her, I often ask, like when I always sage the house and I clean up and I get all the energy in order, and then I'll ask sometimes if I'm guided, like, is there anything I need to know right now? And what I heard was she's up leveled a lot, and I was like, oh, okay. Because I was even having trouble like tuning into her energy, and it's like she wasn't the same. She wasn't the same to like where she was before, and it was like I just had to like meet her all over again in a way. And so that was the feeling I was getting from that. Okay, so it was like things that were very present in the old energy configuration. It's like with, again, like this, with the new energy configuration and it trickling down, it's like they just couldn't hold anymore. But also remembering, and I mentioned this, so I'm in alignment with Alora Hazel's work, and she's been talking about these 3 different inorganic timelines that are dissolving. The first one dissolving the beginning of June, the second one that just happened from the 3rd to the 6th of this month, and then the next one, the beginning of August. I don't remember the dates exactly what she said, but leading up into the Lion's Gate. Okay. And so, so we just went through another one, right? And so, shoot, I forget what I was saying. There's a lot here right now. So I'm kind of having trouble keeping track of it all. But so, the Alora, the clearing, the session, and so she's up leveled, right? So it was part of that, right? It was part of after that next portal thing. So she was in this completely different space. So no, this is what I was saying. So the lower timelines, the lower inorganic timelines that were dissolving, okay, and this happening, the 3 separate timelines dissolving with 3 separate dates. So the second one to go, wherever it was, I forget if it was how she did the picture, but this other inorganic timeline, lower inorganic timeline, dissolving just recently, right? So that's something that's important here. So in the images that I was seeing, it was showing something that was like in her field, right? That was of a distortion. But what was very, very clear was it wasn't like her distortion, right, necessarily. And it wasn't like a psychic attack or a parasite that she picked up or like an implant or anything like that. If it was, it wasn't specifically targeting her. It was something that, like, it came through as if like we all have this. And I don't know if that's true, but I think it's quite possible that we all have these things because we're living in a distorted matrix, and there's all the black magic and the mind spells and the mind control and all the things that are woven into every segment of our society that we just, and then not to mention the frequencies and the disturbances and the rogue signals that are going on, right? So our energy, our natural alignment is jacked up, which leaves us susceptible to these things. So what I saw in the last 2 sessions was like this cage over the third eye, this like cage thing. So it's, it's definitely connected to all those darker intentions. Was it specific to them, or is it in everyone? I don't know, but it's in a lot of people. That was a feeling that I was having, the communication that was coming with all 3 of these things that I saw in her. It's not specific to you. It's more like the level that you're on, the newness that you have in your field that everyone has. Everybody has a new thing, wherever you were at, you got this much more, just as an example, right? Which is changing your configuration. It's kicking out things that are not a match to this piece here that you're bringing in, right? It's allowing things to go, but also remembering that this was a time of deactivating some inorganic timelines. So a lot of those things, the cage that I saw over the third eye, there was a red dragon energy that came through, and I've had that in past life regressions where I've seen it was connected to priestess societies and matriarchal and the rebalancing of polarities and all this. I don't understand all of it, but I just know there was like this red dragon battle that got rectified when I went back to Lemurian time. So all these like just sort of codes, right? Codes going out, symbols that might have meaning for you as well. Again, we're like trying to piece together our memories after this huge amnesia. So we're doing the best that we can, and we're spidey sensing our way through and following the synchronicities and waiting patiently for the pieces of the puzzle to come in, and you have the piece that you have and it's better than what you had before, and just trusting, right? So just throwing some of this out there. So there was some of that energy in there as well. But what's interesting is all of these energies, images that came through representing a different, I don't even know what words to use. I want to say program, a different program, a different like cycling, a different interference, this type of thing. In the end, what we realized, and it's like we were putting it together, we had to powwow together because it was a little confusing. And but in the end, what was clear was that all of these things were deactivated. And because they were showing up, like the one showed up as a statue and it didn't have any life in it. It's like it was frozen. So it wasn't like an active transmission of the energy where you could read it and figure out where it came from and get the story or get, an energetic signature or something. It was like dead energy, but it was still communicating what it was connected to, through association. But then what was interesting is there was a certain moment when it would dissolve and it would go away, and it showed like an echo. It was just like showing this energy. I don't know if this is even important, but it's important, but I don't know if the details are important, but I just feel to share these because as I'm sharing the energy of this, I'm sharing the transmission through the words and through recalling that time, because we were in an energetic space. So it might not make sense, but there's energy in this. So I feel to say it, but so when it would clear, it would show like an echo of it, where there was like almost like if you could watch the sky and there was lightning that would go through, you would see the space where it went through. You would see the vacuum. It was like that, like you could see an image of where it was, but it wasn't there. Anyway, in the end, it became very clear that these were already deactivated programs that were now able to leave. And what we had to do, so this is another one of those things where I'm being reminded again of the power of words. We had to say, like at one point, I forget exactly how it came out. I think I said it, like, we release you. Like they would show up and they would just kind of be like, and I'm like, do you want to say anything? Like, is there a message? Like, what, and who are you? And like, what's your energy? But there was just like nothing, so we were like, okay, well, it's not moving, so we're supposed to talk about it, but there's not really any information. So it was a really interesting session, and the way we maneuvered it was really beautiful, because one of the things she always says is like, stay curious, like I'm just staying curious. So we were just really curious, we just stayed with it. Sometimes when you see something and you can't discern it, your brain just kind of fogs and you're kind of like, oh, well, and just kind of lose focus. But like in sessions, it really helps me to fine tune my perception, because I can't just like flake out and lose focus, because it's like the energy won't move unless we decipher it. So, so it was cool. I was proud of us both. We hung in there. But yeah, it was like there wasn't any information because it was already deactivated. And then that became clear later. But so I was saying we release you now. It's like we had to do something because often when it's like a trauma pattern or something, you see what it is. And so there's a lot of talk around CERN. If you've been seeing these videos where they're going into the specifics and the science of it and the, oh shoot, I forget. I had it in my head and now I can't remember the particle. Well, anyway, it's like when you observe something, then it collapses, right? So I immediately tracked that back to sessions where the energy won't move unless I observe it, unless I say what I'm observing out loud and the other person observes it with me. We observe it together and then it collapses it. And usually that's enough to just be like, I see you, we see you, and then it's like, okay, now I go, but this time it wasn't really working that way, so, and that's the whole thing. There wasn't really a life force that we were interfacing with. It was more like a already deactivated collapsed program. So I learned a lot in the session. And so anyway, then she said, it was like, we were like, well, let's say this. So she said, I release you. And she was just saying, her intentions and all these beautiful things were coming out of her mouth. And then that's what cleared it. Right. So it was this huge reminder where I was like, okay, I'm going to say this. And then she told me this beautiful thing that she had learned where it was simple, working with water, and you take a small cup of water and you set an intention and you drink half of it before bed. And then the next morning you wake up and you set an intention, could be the same one, could be you resolved it in the middle of the night, you set a new intention and you drink the rest of the water. And she was like, oh my God. And it's like been really, really, I've been seeing it manifest things. This is working. And I was like, I'm going to do that. And I'm going to do it around my body. The two things I'm working on is around like conjuring the release of all the things, like I said in the beginning, the release of these memories and disturbances that have been trapped in my body and my fascia, and just allowing them to release. So that's what I was saying about the collapse of that inorganic timeline and us being in this in-between space, that there's a lot that's capable of releasing now, right? So a lot of the body pain that we're having is because this stuff is capable and ready to release. And so I'm getting the message of using the intention, speaking out loud, and now this thing with working with the water, because we know that the water holds the codes and the memories of our original form, which is what we're pulling in and what we're reconnecting to, and using the support of the water and that primal memory to hook up with our water inside of us and our primal memory, and programming it with our intention and using it to move this stuff out. Okay, so that's what I got, from that. Okay, is there more that I want to say about that? Yeah, and so that happened in the session before, where there was a lot of really deep clearings that I realize now we're capable of, because her and I, that first session, we were still kind of in the, we were like both of them are right on, oh, hi, Boudica, I just bumped her, right on the tail end of that, it was like July 7th and 8th that the sessions were, in the thing closing on the 6th, right? So the one was a little fresher out, where things were a little gnarlier, as we were recalibrating. The other one, you had maybe 24 hours to do a little more calibrating, but both of them, but that first one as well, having something where it felt, I'm realizing now, was able to leave because of the up leveling and because of where we were at. Okay. What was coming in and all that and everything that I just said. So then, I don't even know if I guess I'll do cards up front. I might be able to wrap up this one pretty quickly. I don't know. But last night, so I did my water and I set my intention for my body. The other intention that I have is about trusting myself and accepting myself, and knowing that I've been getting a lot of really beautiful messages coming in all kinds of ways about both from within and reflected out from within, but just this knowing that we are, so one of the things I'm saying is I am exactly who and how I am for what I came here to do, and I can trust the flow of my guidance, and I can trust what I'm doing, because it's like when you start to feel that you're wrong and you want to monitor yourself, and then it's like, well, I'll just fall back on all these little boxes and stuff, and then I'll feel safe, and then I won't have to worry about it, and I'll just go down this little pathway that's been carved for me. It's like city water rather than structured water, right? And versus just really, really trusting yourself and allowing yourself to be raw and authentic and letting it all come through however it wants to come through, and not having perfection and not having performance and not having not necessarily fitting into what people are used to and stuff like that. And it's really, really scary to do that. And yet, some people are really, really guided to be on the edge with that, and setting that example. And, other people are working within the framework of the linear and everything that we've been trained, but they need to, and they're bringing through other information that's really important. And that information, like astrology or, detailed things, about, whatever, a system. It's not to say that stuff isn't useful and necessary and a path for some people, but if you are being guided to kind of just let it rip, it's really hard. And it is kind of a cutting edge energy. And not many people finding themselves in that. And if you are, then thank you and hallelujah, and just taking a moment to be yeah, it's really fucking scary. It's really scary. And you can feel you're just oh my God, out on the edge, you're gonna fall off. You don't know where you are, and that's kind of the sensation whenever you bust through a threshold or a new level. You can kind of feel you've lost it, or you don't know where you are, because you don't have, again, you're not used to this space yet, and you're kind of exploring it, but you're a little scared and you don't even know where you are and that kind of thing. So just bringing some of these things into awareness right now, because I'm sure there are others of you, a portion of you, if not many of you, or at least some of you that are that are feeling this right now in these energies. And so a lot around, just self-worth and just really like coming home to yourself and feeling a lot of those like abandonment wounds where and I noticed like I've been finding these posts just coming to me like from my memories or whatever on Facebook that are a lot about that, about the self-love, about like our first abandonment is when we abandon ourselves, thinking we have to be something different in order to be loved, this kind of thing. And I'm noticing that a lot of people are like feeling it. So I do feel this is a collective energy that a lot of us are in, as well as the pain and the leaving in our bodies. So again, this all being signifying that it's a time when this stuff is moving. It's up. We're feeling it. We're triggered. We're feeling insecure, whatever it is. We're in pain because stuff is moving. So to be able to use our intention and our voice out loud, that feels important to say it out loud. The tone, the resonance, that which is within becoming physical, anchoring energy, which is the first step of manifestation. We're putting it in the physical, this type of thing, right? Working with just cosmic law and just what we've learned, the tools that we have, and putting them together with focus at this time. Okay. So here we go. Last night I drank the water and I go to sleep and I have this dream, and in the dream, it's really intense. I mean, it feels really intense to me. I don't know if it'll sound intense when I say it, but basically I remember it so well, like the way the energy felt where I was in this like very, very open space, and I was outside and there were other people around, and it was just sort of this open field and field energy. And so basically I can't remember exactly how it came in. What I understand now is it was like an initiation or a trial or something that I had to do. Let's put it that way. It was like this thing that I had to do. And basically what I had to do is I had to invite the devil into my body. I had to conjure it into my body, like full possession. And then I had to command it away. And in the dream, I had zero fear. I had zero fear. There wasn't even 1 inch of a thought of like, well, what if I can't get it out? Like, what if I take it in and then, like what the human mind would do, right? I was just like, okay. I was just like, got the mission, and so I invited it in. And now, meanwhile, I'll just share this. I was raised Catholic for a few years, and then I went to public school in 5th grade. But I was raised Catholic. My grandmother was Catholic. My grandmother Biondo, she was Catholic, and all that. And so I was always very, very afraid of the devil and very afraid of demons. And in my fear, I would conjure them, and I'd wake up in the bed, be shaking, the walls would be dripping, and I'd be poked, and I'd hear my name. I was just haunted and hunted. And I was scared. So I had all these terrors, and all this. I was afraid of possession. I was afraid of aliens. Why? I just remembered something, I don't know, but the Greys, I was very, very, very afraid of the Greys. And so I had a lot of fear, and I had a lot of psychic attack because of that. Okay. So meanwhile, since then I've learned how to deal, like for a long time, I just shut everything off. I just completely shut down, and I just like drank and, just tried to be like normal, teenage, whatever. And, kind of like once I got into public school, I kind of just tried to be like, okay, let's do this. Let's do this. There was no God there. I didn't like commune astrally in the chapel services and all this. And so I just kind of like fell off of that. But then like when I lost custody of my kids and through trauma, everything cracked open again. And so I was having a lot of shamanic experiences and psychic things opened up for me, but all the demons came back too. And I had to figure out how to deal with them. And so over the years and there was a lot of psychic attack when I was going through the body activations because had a lot of fear and stuff like that. And I was in between realms and accessing multidimensionally and stuff like that. And so what I learned to do, rather than to try to like battle them or fight them off or be afraid, was to just fill myself with my own light. And then sort of like, I remember the first time this came to me, it was just in my own, I remember standing in my kitchen. I do a lot in my kitchen, like at that like one burner, it was a different stove, but there were like several stories I've told in these readings, like literally standing in that kitchen over the fire. And I finally said to it, because I had been under psychic attack for like, 6 days straight, which back then seemed like a really long time. I've had like much longer stretches since then, but this was a while ago, maybe like 5 years ago or something. Anyway, so I couldn't get it to go away. I just could not get it to go away, no matter how many invocations I did and how much sage and how many like sigils on the ground and all the things. And so I finally just said to it, like, well, if you want to hang out, you can hang out, but I'm with God, and I just got sick of it, and I was like, I'm going to be hanging out here with God. And if you want to stay, that's what I'm going to be doing. And you're also welcome. And this is the first time that I saw this. It was like a channel where I was like, you can come home to all that is too. Like, you are actually part of all that is, even though you think that you're separate and you've separated yourself. If you want to come back into unity, you can, like, just so like, you would be welcome, you would. So again, like that thing I was talking about last time with the mother wound, but the mother wound really being that primal wound of separation, where the mother wound we all have, where we're separated from our spirit and from the perfection of all that is, from God, from all that is, from the realizing that everything is a part of one thing, where we're not scared and we're not in lack and limitation and we're not trying to outrun things. We're back in unity. That's the true mother wound, with the primal wound of separation from all that is. So anyway, saying that to the entities or whatever it was that was hunting me at that point, and just like reminding it, like, you can come back home as well, so that all embracing, you will be forgiven. You're welcome. All you got to do is choose it, and it's fine. And so that's when I learned that in that moment. And then like it went away, like it totally worked, it's like went away or it went home or something. And then since then, what I would do is I would just see myself in this golden, like kind of like like the bank things that like and go up like that. That's how I would always see it, like the tube of light, but it would be golden, and it would have like this Christ consciousness energy in it. And I would see myself in that, and I would feel it, and I would sometimes feel them like up and out like that, or sometimes they would just go away. And so that's kind of what I've been doing. It's been really easy. And so, but last night, so that maybe is why my subconscious wasn't afraid. I don't know. But so I took on the devil. And so again, the devil as in like, so I know this links up also with like Catholic school Wendy, like 5-year-old Wendy that was just like, oh, I'm going to go to hell, or whatever it was, like the devil. But it was also representing to me like the OG, like it was a big deal. It wasn't like a minor demon or whatever. It was a big daddy. And so I conjured it, and I felt it come in. And it was it's so interesting, because one of the themes that were coming up in the session yesterday, I kept seeing swans. And it started with like these big wings, like swan wings. One was black and one was white. And so there's this huge message of like integrating the dark and the light and holding them both, and that being a path that a lot of us are on, the embracing polarities and working with both polarities, and weaving them together, and not going into false light or only light, or the linear to outrun right, but like going into hell, going into hell to hold that. So there was a lot with the swans throughout the whole session. It was connected to her power. And then she brought to me this morning that her name actually means grace, and swans are connected to grace. So like in my Angels of Atlantis deck, the swan is connected to the card called grace, and it's like moving from one state of consciousness into another. Okay. So there's that whole thing about like up leveling and frequency, where you're coming out of this lower frequency where all of this density is falling out. You're up leveling into something new. So just real quick, I went to this gathering this morning, and there were 4 of us in my town who were like on the same consciousness and aware of what's going on in our world. And so we were doing this invocation together, and we were anchoring it together. And so I walked down, and the one person that was there is quite eccentric and has like this really interesting vehicle. And on top of his van were all these swans. There were like 5 swans, maybe 6. And the second one was black, and then the rest of them were white. And then one of them had like a black beak. So I was just like, oh my God, that's crazy. And so I took a picture of it, and I'm going to send it to the woman I was working with. But yeah, so just like spirit weaving everywhere. So just this message of this like kind of like being gracefully moved from one thing to another, right? From one level of consciousness to another is how I see it with the symbol of the swan. Okay, hold on. So yeah, it's a lot, but it's all related. So So the demon, oh yeah, Black Swan. So I thought of this yesterday in the session with, have you seen that movie with Natalie Portman? And so she's a ballet, she's a ballet person, and she's dancing, and she's really, really good at the white, so she's doing the swan, the white swan, Black Swan. I forget the name of the piece, and so she's the white swan, and she's really good at it, but she's not good at the Black Swan because she's not in touch with her darkness. She's not in touch with her darkness. She hasn't gone down into those trials. And so throughout the show, the guy is like trying to teach her, how to get in touch with her darkness, and he's telling her to like masturbate and stuff like that, and so like get in touch with your sensuality, get in touch with like all the various versions of like darkness, femininity, whatever. And so in the end, she embodies the Black Swan. And so when she embodies the Black Swan in the performance, it's really shamanic, but the way it's like you can feel the entity of her darkness come inside of her, and she's just like, and she's just like, she has this look on her face, and I almost don't even want to recreate it because it was exactly like that last night, where the energy came inside of me, and it's like the devil, but it was also my darkness. Oh, I'm getting dizzy. And so what I felt, rather than, like when my linear mind, my human mind goes back and looks at that dream and I analyze it, or if somebody told me beforehand this was going to happen, I would be like, oh no, when it possesses me, I'm going to feel like really scared, or it's going to be like so demonic and so like hell realm, and just the way I often feel entities and energies, which is just this like, this like really scary, like terrifying frequency of like hell, or like AI, like soulless, and that's not how I felt when it came in. I felt power. And it's like, that's the real like devil takeover, demonic, satanic takeover. When you sell your soul, you allow the darker energies to come in exchange for power. But it's like disconnected power. It's not heart power. It's not connection with all it is. It's separate. You're separate. You're powerful. You're, and I was observing it. It wasn't like I went fully into it and went unconscious. There was the me that was just like I was a scientist, and I was just tracking what this felt like. So I felt really powerful. I felt really important. I felt really, so it's like, and as a lot of us are confronting this like self-worth thing, and like, please help me to be in integrity, and please help me to see anything that's not in integrity, and this type of thing. It's like that what is not being in integrity is that like exaggerated power where you're sucking it all for yourself, this type of thing. And so that's how it was in the dream or in the experience. And I remember at one moment, but I was observing it. So I was just kind of like, okay, so this is what it feels like. This is what it feels like to sell your soul to the devil. You're really off on your power, and you're, and you just feel separate from everything else, and you're, and all this. And I remember I had this thought like, I could do like, almost like if you, like when you do people that smoke cannabis or cacao or something like that, and you try it with different things like cacao, like, well, let me try it dancing, or let me try it making love, or let me try it, like that, where it's like, let me try on this like devil drug in different circumstances. How would that feel? And I was immediately like, time to go, and I just kicked him out. I just conjured him out, and just as I felt him come in, I felt him leave, and it was just like so effortless, and there wasn't any like, oh my God, I did it, because in the dream I never doubted that I would. It was just like I was supposed to do this, and I was supposed to have this experience, and then he left, and I was just left with like, just me and like my connection, and I felt connected to all that is again. And then I don't even know what happened after that. Like the dream went on, the night went on. And a little later, it might have been directly later, I don't know, I woke up and I really had to pee. And as I was getting up out of bed, I was like, wait a minute. I was like, I didn't feel anything in the room. I didn't feel any interference. There was no like nothing. And I was like, what? Did I have a dream? I was like, was something weird happen? And then I was like, oh, and I was standing in my hallway in the dark, and I got like literal, like the biggest goosebumps I've ever had in my life, like all over my body. And I was just like, oh my God. And then I went back to bed, and then that's when all my human stuff came in. Whereas like, even though like I had gotten really good, like I said, it just kind of like up and out, and like no big deal. Like that really scared me, and it was hooking up with like my childhood fears of like being possessed and being taken over, and it's like, and it's that thing of like, we've all been taken over in this realm, because the pure transmission of our pure soul and our pure divinity has been hijacked and corralled, and we've had traumas. And so then we're trying to function off of the small bandwidth that we've had, and then we're playing out our unprocessed shadow. And it's like, we all have elements of this, right? And so, so I understand why I was so afraid of that as a kid, and on the one hand, because that's really scary, demons are scary and like full possession. Wow, that's really scary. But on the other hand, we're all experiencing versions of that in our lives. And so it was almost like an indicator of like what my soul was here to really unravel and to go the whole way into full potential and full alignment through purity, not through stealing any power, through distortion or through deals with the devil, deals with shadow, deals with darkness, stealing, manipulating, conniving, whatever it is. And so we were talking about that in the last reading too, like where that kind of energy it's not a vibrational match to where we're going and what we're starting to stabilize in the field, even though it hasn't dominated, it hasn't restructured the entire field, but there are pockets of this anchored where it's kind of like this, here's a pocket and it's starting to infiltrate through the rest of us, what we were embodying. And of course that happens every time we up level, right? Or every time you do a clearing, your body will reconfigure, your energy field will reconfigure. But again, each one that we do gets us closer and closer to our full potential. And so then there's even more restructuring, which then restructures out, so we're not like there yet collectively, right? But it's starting. And so, anyway, I started thinking, I got nervous, so the whole thing where I was like, oh my God, like never before have I welcomed one into my body to literally take me over and then cast it out. And so I immediately revoked consent, like if I consented to anything in that, if there was some sort of trick or some sort, like I didn't want to just assume because I easily kicked it out that there wasn't some like little trapdoor thing, tricky thing going on. So I revoked consent and I called back my energy and I sealed, but I was really tired, and so I got a little paranoid where I was like, well, maybe I didn't do it with enough conviction and, that kind of thing. And so I just got myself in a little bit of a spin. And then I was like, okay, hold on. So I did my field, I did my golden light. And again, all of this, there's like transmissions and codes and all of this. And so you might be relating to some of this energy in your own way. Okay. So I'm just going into detail like I often do as I'm guided to do. And so I could feel I felt my golden thing. I felt it, but I could feel so here's the thing. When I woke up from the dream, I didn't feel anything in the room. There was no interference. Everything was clear. I just got paranoid. And in my paranoia, this is what we were talking about, I had fear, and then the things could come in, and other things could come in and attach to the fear. I didn't feel like what I was interfacing with and clearing was the thing that I was embodying in the dream, because I felt like that was just sort of a trial and an energy. I felt like in my fear, I attracted in things, that were like, oh, great. And then in combination with doing this sort of reconfiguring and me being kind of vulnerable, it's like the perfect setup, right? But also everything's in service to the light, right? So I felt things, so I did my thing and I felt it on the outside of my bubble. And so this woman that I was working with, she was telling me about how recently she went somewhere and she was in service and she was in her light. But when she came home, she was seeing this like demonic entity thing, but it was outside her house. She could see it out her window, but it wasn't in her house. And that's how I was saying this a couple of readings ago, how when I have psychic attack, it's like, they're not in my house. They're not in my body. They're not in my house. They're outside, and so it's like they can't get in, when you have enough shielding or you have a high enough frequency, they can't get very close to you, but you can still feel that they're near, so it was like that. That's what she was experiencing. That's what I was experiencing last night. I could feel they were like outside of my bubble. They weren't in my central area, but they were nearby. And so I just couldn't relax, and so then I started to fall asleep. And if you remember in that last reading, I saw on the timestamp 2323. And I was like, I noted it and I said it out loud. And then the next morning I woke up, and as I was waking up, I heard, and I posted this in a comment, I don't know if you saw it or maybe you didn't watch the reading, but I heard Psalm 23. And I woke up and I was like, wow, because I don't have these things memorized, I'm not like a Bible person, but I was like, well, I saw 2323 in the reading, and I often track 23 because it adds up into 5, and 5 is the number of change, and so I just always noticed that number. And so I looked up the psalm, and it was about like the Christ, Jesus, but I see it as Christ consciousness, and how the passage was like, you're always with me. Like you walk with me through the valley of darkness, and you set a table for me amongst my enemies. And just that, so it was like a passage of safety, which was really interesting, because in that last reading, I was saying that, like at one point I even said, you are safe. I am safe, and that kind of thing, how that was coming up in that last reading. So it was a real message of safety. And so as I was falling asleep, that came to me again last night. And immediately I felt so held and I felt so safe. And it was like the personification of my own Christed energy, divine divine masculine protective energy within me conjured. And then everything was clear and I fell asleep and no big deal, so really interesting. However, I feel that was a huge clearing last night on a lot of levels, where that with that intention with the water before bed to both clear my body of traumas and things that were stored that were causing contraction and tension and all these things throughout the eons in this life. And then remembering this morning, one of the cards that I got was the Six of Cups, which is like childhood and nostalgia and memory. So big clearing with that. But I also feel that's collective, things that we're confronting right now, going back really far, because again, remember, we're in this energy, we're able to clear that which is no longer a match. Like this energy is just pushing stuff out. So that's those overlays and those cages and those implants and these things from the black magic that we're all swimming in, but also things from our childhood that are often connected to darker energies that make us turn on ourselves and separate from our spirit and our intuition and all these things. And so really huge energy, and in that dream, just illuminating a lot about where we're at. I really do feel it's a collective energy, and I feel it was a dream that I was meant to share. I don't know how that translated. I don't know if there was like transmissions or energy in that spoke to you, that might have connected you with something in your life, but I feel like it holds the energy of all these pieces, the pieces of the power of speaking, right? Conjuring, saying it out loud, because I said that invocation to get him to leave out loud, just naturally saying things out loud, believing in your power, like knowing in the safety of your Christed consciousness and the illumination of your own divine masculine energy. So in that last reading, I was talking a lot about the boundaries. I was talking about the mother wound, but I was talking about the boundaries that would be our divine masculine energy. And I didn't put that together in the reading, but when I re-listened, it was like, oh my God, it was the mother and the father, it was the divine feminine energy and then the divine masculine energy protecting her. And then, as we're in this realm of all the mind spells and the black magic and the things and all these things, right? So utilizing the balancing of our polarities and using our words to create a boundary and to affect reality, to affect the clearing of these things in this time when this is very possible. So I am at 50 minutes. I didn't pull any cards. I am just going to end there. Otherwise this will be like a 2-hour long reading. So I just felt like I needed to get that out. I will go back and listen. I've never not posted a video because I can always feel it's like, when you're guided to do something, you just have to do it, and you might doubt it and you might go back and question yourself. But when the energy's there, the energy's there. So just trusting that all of this that I was guided to share this for a reason, and that it may have spoken to some, if not many of you. And and again, often when I will re-listen to the video, because I'm just saying things and it's just coming out. And then when I listen, it's like I'm getting the transmissions as well. So often when I do the tags on YouTube, I can't do this, or I don't do this. I guess I could actually, but I don't think, I'm like, what's the point? Hardly anybody watch on there, and you'd have to go and click and see. But on Facebook, I do these tags, and I tag in, not like a traditional tag where I'm trying to connect with other things, but I'm just letting people know what the different things I'm talking about are, because there's kind of like a framework that I'm providing through the tags to kind of anchor the energy. That's how I'm using tags, doing things my own way, but also letting people know and just kind of giving a framework for the conscious mind to track what's going on. As I realize, oh, that's what this is. Okay, boom. That's what this is. Boom. Or I might not be making the connections immediately in the reading. So just letting you know that I've been doing that for a while, but I never said that out loud. Let me see if there's anything else that I want to say, that I feel to say. I think that is it. I think that's it. So thank you for listening. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you for communing. Feel free to comment if you have any synchronicities or anything that you'd like to share and anchor in the field with community. That can be really powerful. And so then now I leave and I go to the ocean, and I'm going to get all those Atlantean and Lemurian codes, and we'll see what happens from there. I know there's something to that coming right out of this whatever word, dissolution, activation, next level, and continuing with the recalibration and the clearing out of things in our bodies, in our fascia, in our psyches, in our patterns, in our habits in the world, and coming into new guidance, new new habits, new hobbies, new offerings, whatever, as things settle. But definitely feeling, I'm filming this on Thursday, the 9th, and I probably won't post it because I need my phone to look at my list back tonight. But I'll probably post it sometime tomorrow. So that'll be the 10th, which is interesting, the 10 being a number of completion. But anyway, not that far out from that portal. So feels like we're still at this point that I'm doing the reading, really reconfiguring and having that be a little bit of a vulnerable time, but also just recapping here, really also a powerful time and moving things through on all the different levels that we're moving them through, whether it's insecurities from this lifetime or deep traumas that were trapped in our bodies, or overlays, or black magic type of like programs, or whatever you want to call them, cages, seals, whatever, that are functioning and running within us. A lot of those things being able to leave using the power of our voice, our focus, our intention, and perhaps if you feel guided, water to help connect us to that primal memory that can never be destroyed, and using this time wisely, because it's really potent. It's a very, very potent time I'm feeling. So yeah, just offering that out in case it's of help to any of you, or inspiration or confirmation or validation, or moving energy, clearing energy, activating energy, always welcoming those things to be in the field before I do a reading. So, all right, much love to you all, and I'll see you on the other side of the ocean for me, and blessings on your week. And yeah, we'll see you next time if I do. Okay.